Hi everyone, Dallin and Karree Larsen. On behalf of our entire family, we would like to wish you and your family a very Merry Christmas and a happy holiday season. Snow is on the ground here in Utah. The trees are up, the lights are lit. It's certainly a magical time of the year. Today, for our Christmas message, I'd like to share with you a special story of significance for me. I carry this binder around with me. I've had it for almost 40 years. And inside this binder is a collection of different quotes and stories that have touched me, that have meant something in my life for the last almost 40 years. So there's a few stories about Christmas. And if you will allow me today, I'd like to share one of my very favorite Christmas stories with you and your family that I believe exemplifies what Christmas is really all about. It's called A Miracle, and I hope I can get through it. I probably won't. It's a heartfelt story, and so that's one of the reasons I love it so much. It's called A Miracle. Maybe Karree will have to read some of this. The violent grinding of brakes suddenly applied, and the harsh creaking of skidding wheels gradually died away as the big car came to a stop. Eddie quickly picked himself up from the dusty pavement where he had been thrown and looked around wildly. Agnes, where was the little sister he had been holding by the hand when they started to cross the street? The next moment he saw her under the big car that had run them down, her eyes closed, a dark stain slowly spreading on her white face. With one bound, the boy was under that car, trying to lift the child. Maybe this isn't a good idea. I'll try. You'd better not try, son, said a man gently. Someone has gone to telephone for an ambulance. She's not dead, is she, mister? Eddie begged in a husky voice. The man stopped and felt the limp little pulse. No, my boy, he said slowly. A policeman came up and dispersed the collecting crowd. Eddie's folded coat made a pillow for her head until the ambulance arrived. He was permitted to ride in the ambulance with her to the hospital. Something about the sturdy, shabbily dressed boy who could not be more than 10 years old and his devotion to his little sister strangely touched the hearts of the hard-boiled hospital attendants. We must operate at once, said the surgeon after a brief preliminary examination. She has been injured internally. She has lost a great deal of blood. He turned to Eddie, who, inarticulate with grief, stood dumbly by. Where do you live? Asked the surgeon. Eddie told him that their father was dead and that their mother did day work. He did not know where. We can't wait to find her, said the surgeon. By that time, it might be too late. Eddie waited in the sitting room while the surgeons worked over Agnes. After what seemed an eternity, a nurse sought him out. Eddie, she said kindly, your sister is very bad and the doctor wants to make a transfusion. Do you know what that is? Eddie shook his head. She has lost so much blood she cannot live unless someone gives her his. Will you do it for her? Eddie's face grew paler and he gripped the knobs of the chair so hard his knuckles became white. For a moment he hesitated, then gulping back his tears, he nodded his head and stood up. That's a good lad, said the nurse. She patted his head and led the way to the elevator, which whisked them to the operating room, a very clean but evil-smelling room with pale green walls and innumerable shiny instruments in glass cases. No one spoke to Eddie except the nurse, who directed him in a low voice how to prepare for the ordeal. The boy bit his quivering lip and silently obeyed. Are you ready? Asked a man swathed in white from head to foot, turning from the table over which he had been bending. For the first time, Eddie noticed who was lying there so still, little Agnes, and he was going to make her well. He stepped forward quickly. 2 hours later, the surgeon looked up with a smile into the faces of the young interns and the nurses who were engrossed in watching the great man's work. Fine, he said, I think she'll pull through. After the transfusion, Eddie had been told to lie quietly on a cot in the corner of the room. In the excitement of the delicate operation, he had been entirely forgotten. It was wonderful, doctor, exclaimed one of the young interns. A miracle. Nothing he felt in his enthusiastic recognition of the marvels of surgery could be greater than the miracles of science. I am well satisfied, said the surgeon with conscious pride. There was a tug at his sleeve, but he did not take notice. In a little while, there was a harder tug, and the great surgeon glanced down to see a ragged, pale-faced boy looking steadily up into his face. Say, doctor, said a husky voice, when do I die? The interns laughed, and the great surgeon smiled. "Why, what do you mean, my boy?" he asked. "I thought when they took a guy's blood he died," muttered Eddie slowly. The smiles faded from the lips of the doctors and nurses, and the young intern, who had thought there was nothing greater than the miracles of science, caught his breath suddenly. "Greater love hath no man than this, that he lay down his life." This young man had climbed to the very height of nobility and sacrifice, and had showed them a glimpse of the greatest gift of all, a selfless love. But Eddie must never know this. The lesson was too beautiful to be wasted. The great surgeon motioned the others for silence. "I think after all you will get well, Eddie," he said gruffly. "You and little Agnes. Mm-hmm. I hope this Christmas season that we will go out of our way to show love to perhaps those who feel hopeless and alone at this time of the season, and there are many." So, Karree, would you like to say a few words?
Well, if you make me cry my eyes out. Merry Christmas. Have an amazing New Year.
We look forward to January 3rd, the official launch day of Vasayo. And as we launch this company, may we do so with a smile on our face and love in our hearts, and be hope brokers for all those who are hopeless around North America and eventually around the world. May God bless you and your families with a peace unspeakable this Christmas season. Thank you, and God bless you and your family.
Amen.